All right, saturation in Photoshop. We've talked about it a lot. A lot of people have talked about it a lot. But let's go ahead and analyze it with a little bit of a color science approach and see if that helps you kind of understand what's happening, why certain things maybe are frustrating you, like when you're trying to make modifications, especially when you're trying to print or do any other type of color management. You might have things happening that you don't realize are happening. And maybe, just maybe, this little color science demo will give you some help. Now, let's look at our image and then we'll review all of these layers. Okay, so we have a general image. The most tones in it are going to be blue, obviously, from the denim, and the very subtle blues. And then, of course, we have the reds and the oranges from the skin tone. Beyond that, we have what our brain sees as white, as neutral gray. Now, it is not neutral gray. It's not at all. There's some color in there. It's just not much. So what hues are in there? How much saturation is in there? What happens if I modify it? What happens if I don't, right? There's all kinds of different things that tend to cause some frustration when people are making changes. They feel like the image is working against them, and it's because they don't always understand it. This is why we do image analysis in all kinds of different ways. This is simply one way. Now, I chose an image with a big gray background and subtle colors because this is usually where we run into problems, because we think the background's neutral and it's gray, and then we start making changes and it's not, and we start bringing out artifacts and other elements in quote unquote neutral that shouldn't be there, or at least we don't expect them to be there when we make radical changes, especially on color grading and especially on boosting saturation. So there's going to be a little bit of exaggeration, but it'll kind of give you an idea, and we're going to allow us to see things actively as they work. So let's get started. So here's our image. Now, right above that, I have a hue and saturation layer. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. This is very, very straightforward, set to normal blend mode, nothing fancy. And if we increase saturation, we get a saturation boost, as you can see. And of course, if we decrease, everything goes down. Now, what of course happens if we go maximum? Let's go to maximum. If we increase maximum on the HSL adjustment layer, we're going to get kind of a ham-fisted saturation. Amazing for graphic design work, not so great for boosting photographs, and really not so great for boosting portraits if you're going to push it hard. There are better ways to push it hard to get that perceived high saturation, and this ain't it. Okay, so that's one thing. We have that ready to go. Now we have the vibrance adjustment layer, which has evolved in recent months with Adobe. They've changed it to color and vibrance, and now we have temperature and tint in there, so we can adjust our white balance directly. And we have, of course, vibrance, and we maximize that. You see there's a different result. We have videos on that, which I'm sure I'll link, that explain the differences between the HSL saturation and vibrance and the HSL saturation and this saturation. Also different than the HSL one. So, for example, if I go to the HSL one and crank it, you'll see how that looks compared to the cranked HSL one the cranked saturation on vibrance, right? Just a different sort of algorithm, the way it boosts color. It tries to keep lower saturated areas more under control. It's just a more pleasing way to boost color. And there are times when that saturation slider is better than vibrance, and there are times when vibrance is better than the saturation slider. It just depends. But let's see exactly what's happening before we go on to our next layers. Okay, so we have these pre-visualizers. Some of these are available in some of my actions. Other ones I've just made for this demo, right? Because they're going to be active. We don't want to make a visualizer that permanently cooks the pixels into a new raster layer, because I want you guys to see it actively happening, right? So these are made up of various different adjustment layers. Some of them have some math going on, and it's cool with blend modes, and it's really interesting how that stuff works. I've shown it before. If you guys want more information, let me know. But let's talk about what is happening. So first and foremost, we have chroma on white. What does that mean? Well, if I turn that on, we're seeing our chroma information on white. In other words, everything that's more, or rather closer to white, has almost no color, hue, or saturation information, okay? We have removed the luminosity information. We're looking at saturation and hue. That's all we're looking at. And the reason why I have it on chroma on white and chroma on black, depending on the demo you're doing, you may want to see them on different ones. So as you can see, this is chroma on black. You can see where the saturations land. They look a little stronger on black. It's just perceptually. And then we have chroma on gray, which is probably the most common one that people are used to. Once again, we're looking at the saturation and the hue with the luminosity information removed. What does that do for us? Well, for example, let's say I come down here to the HSL, okay? I'm going to go ahead and put that back to 0. You can see how I can slide the saturation up, and you can actively see the chroma on gray change. See that? And of course, you might think, look at all that green back there. Yeah, there's a ton of green back there. Okay. Now that's what happens when you remove the luma information. So all you have mostly is this huge wash of green and cyan in the background, which you didn't realize was there. We'll talk about what happens to quote unquote neutral colors or neutral areas when they hit your sensor. That's a whole different thing. Vibrance, when you boost the vibrance, you can see that it increases saturation, and you can see that data inside your chroma, okay? But it protects, if you will, neutral areas a little bit better. More obvious on black. On white, not quite as obvious. You can see that green still popping up, but you can see it protects a lot better than the regular HSL. When you crank that up, it doesn't protect anything. It's very, very linear. And of course, it can be a disaster. Now, what if we have this background HSL, which has the background masked out via Photoshop, right? And we take that saturation all the way down, and then we put it on chroma black, for example. Okay, now it doesn't matter what we do here, because the data that we're sending upward gets neutralized by the background HSL, right? So if you want pure white on your image, that's one way to do it. So if you turn off the visualizers and just leave that one on, right, then that's what's happening there. We've made our background perfectly gray. That's how you remove any color information from there. Obviously, okay, let me say this another way. That sounds really, really obvious, okay? But in the world of like printing, for example, especially historically, the modern printing era is a little bit different. But historically, if we're making plates, if we're outputting a black plate, if we're outputting spot colors, things like that, we need to pay attention to where the colors are landing. Do we want pure neutral? Do we want pure gray? Does this area of the image of this plate only need to be outputting black, only K? Things like that we have to consider. And when we produce images and we edit images, sometimes we have to consider that too. So we add grading and saturation on top of this image. We may want our background with this desaturation all the way down, and then we can adjust. We don't want usually 100% desaturation, but we might want a good amount, okay? Now let's go ahead and reset that one, because let's look at some other visualizers. We have the saturation mask visualizer. This is only chroma information saturation mask. You notice it looks pretty much like the chroma data in terms of where the information is, okay? But the sat mask allows you to visualize it like a mask. So white areas are more saturated and the gray areas are less saturated, and black has none. So if you go back to vibrance, for example, and increase the saturation there, you'll see your saturation mask get more intense, right? Okay. Now this one here doesn't have the desaturation, but if I turn the desaturation back on, none of that information shows up in the saturation mask, right? So you can see this is, again, just kind of give you a visual of what is happening, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see how this protects the neutrals very well, the vibrance, but, oh, let me just reset that. But saturation protects the neutrals a little less. Reset that. And then on the HSL slider, it protects the neutrals none at all. If I turn off the background, you can see that, right? So, or at least minimally anyway. Very, very linear. Now, these kind of visualizations don't necessarily make you a better editor, but they give you an idea of what's going on. And in some key ways, it's very, very important because you understand maybe what's happening. For example, if you're going to try to do like a white balance adjustment. This has a little bit of a cyan cast to it. Multiple ways that we can fix it. And one really, really simple way is you duplicate your background layer or whatever layer you're on. Okay. Then we're going to open up Camera Raw, which is Shift Command or Shift Control A, right? Open up Camera Raw, and then you get, raw like tools. You're not really using raw data, but you do get this happy, eyedropper, and you can choose, let's say the gray, you want it to be pure gray. So you find an area that works to the closest pure gray you can get, hit OK. Boom. Now we have that sort of neutralized. We remove that cast pretty well, right? So if I come here to, let's say, I don't know, chroma on black, you see it there. This is the non-adjusted, non-white balance change. This is the white balance change. And you see the differences, of course, if you turn it off, you see there's weird green colors and whatnot in her face, some trace colors, some oranges. And then when you actually white balance it, she's more neutral, more even, right? And of course, if you go to chroma on white, you can kind of see the differences, maybe ever so slightly. That cast goes away, that little bit of a green cast goes away, right? And it gets even more obvious when you boost the vibrance. So there it is, color corrected for white balance. There it is without. You see that? This is just giving you an idea of where the data is landing. Now, one of the clearest ways to see where the data is landing, turn off chroma white, turn off vibrance for a minute. Let's go ahead and turn off our white balance adjusted. Let's go to a hue map. Now, a hue map shows every single hue, every single pixel at maximum saturation and maximum brightness. So you get every hue maxed out, okay? So this is not saturation. This is not showing saturation. This is just like, this is where all the pixels are. This is what's happening, okay? Every single pixel. This is a great way to target different things. So you can kind of get an idea. If you want to make a selection, you might want to target the genes or whatever. But look what happens when you turn on your white balance corrected one. It doesn't get any better. What is happening? I know that confuses a lot of people. They're like, wait a minute, I feel like this one is a cleaner overall map. And then you white balance correct and everything goes to hell. Kind of. One of the problems with like I mentioned earlier, the way neutralish pixels hit your sensor is that they can drift in hues, okay? You notice her coat, for example. The background's one obvious example, but look at her coat. There's a lot of neutralish colors in there. Put on a hue map, and we have a cascading rainbow, especially on the non-corrected. See this? On the non-corrected, we literally have every color. So once it gets down past a certain threshold, how it gets captured on the sensor can kind of flip either direction. There's some math and some algorithms and some science going on in camera sensors. And better cameras are more consistent. Lower cost cameras are less consistent, right? So neutral tends to mess up. But when you have that data captured, it's only just so integrous, as it were, because this is an older DSLR. And so the data is good, but not great. It's not going to be as good as a modern day, I don't know, Hasselblad or something, obviously, or a Leica. But this is where image caliber, image quality, and the data information becomes a bigger deal when you're making serious changes. This is not a serious change. This is simply an analysis. However, when you color correct for white balance, now her coat becomes more consistent somewhat. At least the hues make sense that we're in that sort of denim range of blue and I guess purple. Okay. It starts to make more sense. But the background, because that data was never really that great on that sensor, it turned white, it turned gray, neutral, excuse me, let's turn that off. It turned neutral, but the hues shifted everywhere. This could cause a problem when you start boosting specific color ranges later, if you're not concerned or not masking out your background. If you do mask out your background, remove the saturation, you solve your problem. Okay, if you remove it completely. Now with a hue map, if you bring the saturation up even a little bit, it maxes out again because that's what the hue map math does. However, if you have something like chroma on black, that background is not going to be as bad as you tailor. You know what? Let's go to gray. Gray will probably be easier. That background, if you reduce all the saturation, you notice it's perfectly gray. And if you were to increase the saturation, you'll start seeing some of the trace colors in there. So even a reduction in saturation of the background can help you when you're working later on to add color grading on top of your image that has all these neutrals. And it's not just the background. It can be anything that's relatively neutral. You can try to mask it out and control that saturation in some way so you don't get those false positives. Because, for example, if we turn on our hue map again, this band right here that goes from green to yellow to red and then purple, that band, if you're boosting skin tones or if you're adding reds or simply boosting the red area in some manner, that band could show up. And you think, why is that there? They're supposed to be gray. I know, but it's there. It's actually there. And that's what can frustrate you. And that's why a simple desat, and we can solve that problem. Granted, on the hue map, we can't show it subtly, but a simple desat and we solve that problem. And there we go. Now we know anything that we do on top of that. Yes, the gray will take color. So for example, if I go to a selective color and I start adding grading of some form, I'm not saying this is great. I'm saying this is what I'm doing. If I start adding grading of some form, yes, the area above the desaturated area will take color, of course, right? And you can see that reflected in a hue map. There's without the color grade, there's with the color grade, right? So you're still going to see some banding and some mapping up there. But if you take that desaturation and at least have it, if you don't have it, who knows what kind of predictability you're going to have or lack of predictability you're going to have, especially if you're boosting ranges. In this case, I added color on top, so it's going to be pretty predictable. Turn that off. It's going to be pretty predictable by adding color on top. So that's pretty easy. But if you're going to do some kind of boost of a specific range, you might start getting weird banding. Now, banding in general, like on solid backgrounds like this, people talk about that all the time. How do we get rid of banding on a gradient? Because of, am I an 8-bit maybe? It makes it worse. And other techniques. But it's not just for that banded look, that stepped look. It's also for when you add grading, you might start getting false positives. Now, whether you add grading on top and then desaturate the background here, like only grade her, and then change the desaturations just a little bit to control the background, that might give you more predictable result. I don't know. That's going to be depending on what you're trying to do, right? So let's go ahead and reset that. All right. So that's what I'm trying to explain is that when you look at what's happening here, whether it's a hue map and then here's the white balance corrected, which seems worse, but she's better, but the background got worse because those neutral tones don't know what to do. That's just math and pixel capturing, right? Or if you have a saturation mask, you can kind of see what's happening there. You can boost that and see the saturation gets more intense. You can also make sure the background is not saturated, either a little bit or a lot. See how you can control that? This is just previewing or rather visualizing our saturation areas to see what's happening, whether it's on chroma gray, whether it's on chroma black or chroma white, doesn't matter. You can still get a basic visualization of what's going on. You see that we increase the saturation of the background, we see those trace green pixels. And of course, if we put our color corrected, our white balance corrected on, you can see what's happening there. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense and if you feel like that helps you in any way, but being able to see what's happening sort of under the hood, if you will, not exactly code, obviously, but to see actually what's happening to the image. I mean, hell, the idea of just seeing a out of camera image with a cast on it and then the cast removed, seeing that on chroma is already like, oh, okay, that helps me see something. That kind of makes sense. This is obviously a cast. This is obviously white balance corrected, right? She looks a little bit better, etc. Hue maps, of course, bring out all the weaknesses. That's a whole different animal, and that's a very different type of analysis like we talked about. But keep that in mind, guys. Data, as you put layers, whether it's another raster layer or adjustment layers or folders of layers, and you change blend modes, all of this is just creating calculations. Starts at the bottom, shoots up the top, and at the very top, you get what you see. And if you think about it that way, like you're building a mathematical set of calculations to get a certain look, you understand when things go wrong. Why is my background supposed to be gray and it's not? Okay, let's target that directly. Is there a weird trace purple in there I'm not aware of? There might be. Let's take a look. What's happening to the saturation? Why do the different saturation adjustment layers do different things? What happens if I neutralize the background but still have more noise? What's going on? Again, I'm not giving you any spoon-fed answers on what this means for you, but I'm giving you an idea that we can use adjustment layers to analyze images. We don't need to have, necessarily a third-party image analysis application. We can do it here if we take the time to learn and figure out what maybe these things could mean for us and how we can maybe just learn from them. Even if we don't ever use them in an edit, we can learn what the data is doing by visualizing what the data is doing. I hope that sort of makes sense, maybe, in some ways for you guys. If you have more questions about color science-y things, please leave a comment below or drop me an email, nbp@ninobatista.com. I'd love to hear from you. I know we just want to make pretty pictures, and complicated layer stacks that do all kinds of mathematics aren't always useful, but to some people, it helps them envision what Photoshop is doing. And in the end, once they get their head around it a little bit, this and so much more, it does make them more creative. It does give them more freedom to understand what's happening in the digital editor so they can get results that are not only predictable, but they can also modify things when they go a little funny.